Furloughs planned for Oklahomans who work for the federal government have been delayed and may eventually be reduced. Federal workers, made up mostly of Defense Department civilian employees, were expecting the cuts to hit around April 21st. But Congress has taken action that may keep some of them on the job longer by passing a continuing resolution to fund the federal government for the next 6 months. Nonetheless, cuts under sequestration remain in place, and Oklahoma's economy is bracing for the impact.
The yeas are 73, the nays are 26. H.R. 933, as amended, is agreed to.
In passing the continuing budget resolution, Congress made changes to give especially the military more flexibility in how they absorb their share of $85 billion in budget cuts this fiscal year. That means furlough notices, an estimated 24,000 Oklahomans were expecting, will be delayed 2 weeks, while the Pentagon looks at the budget bill and decides how else to save money. Adding to the uncertainty is the measure has yet to be signed by the president. Kevin Smith is the captain of the firefighters at Tinker Air Force Base. He and his crews may still lose 20% of their pay beginning possibly in May.
We're responsible to put out those fires. If they were to have a crash, we're responsible for the base housing, our large industrial processes.
Because Congress was unable to make targeted federal spending cuts, the mandatory cuts imposed by sequestration were planned to hit 14,000 Tinker Air Force Base employees with unpaid furloughs for 2 days per pay period.
You're talking from April to September, $1,000 a month. I don't know about other people, but I have a house payment. I have 2 kids that are in the sports, dance, and everything else. I've had to tell my kids we got to cut back.
According to the White House, furloughing 24,000 DoD civilian workers in Oklahoma saves $123.9 million. The Army in Oklahoma was expecting to lose about $48 million, the Air Force around $20 million. The state chamber issued a white paper listing the impacts of sequestration on the Oklahoma military. According to the chamber, there are more than 69,000 people employed by the Defense Department, either in the military or as civilian employees or contractors in Oklahoma. Those jobs require support staff, which is another 64,700 jobs. Arnella Carges is Vice President of Government Affairs for the Chamber. She says part of the immediate impact will come from a lot of new people looking to state government for help.
People that have less money a lot of times have to then turn to government services for various needs. So where Oklahoma's economy has been performing really well and above and beyond other states, just due to the large military population Oklahoma has compared to other states, this could have a dramatic effect on our state's bottom line.
And then there's the impact on local economies, which may cause additional job losses.
Particularly our small defense contractors in Oklahoma, our small manufacturers that are providing materials for products they're building at Tinker and testing at Tinker and our other bases in Oklahoma. They're the ones who will really be hurt.
State Senator Frank Simpson is chairman of the Senate Veterans and Military Affairs Committee. He says sequestration also means cuts in health care for military retirees.
There's potential for some of those retirees, military retirees that are using TRICARE, who can no longer afford to use TRICARE because the copay has gone up so much, being forced into the VA system, a system that's already overloaded, and the potential for even more retired military to try to seek out VA for health care.
The Oklahoma National Guard is also looking at cutbacks from sequestration.
Funds to support the operations of the Guard could be dramatically impacted, which would affect our ability of our Guard to respond to emergencies within the state.
Colonel Max Moss is Public Affairs Officer for the Oklahoma National Guard. There are more than 10,000 Oklahomans in the Air and Army National Guard and about 1,800 support personnel that make up their full-time workforce.
We have about 1,060 federal technicians that are part of our full-time workforce. They make up more than 60% of the full-timers that work for the Oklahoma Army and Air National Guard.
Those federal techs are now facing 4 furlough days a month, beginning possibly in May. They are the people who keep the Guard mobile.
Anytime the public sees a truck going down the interstate, a military vehicle going down the interstate, or a helicopter, or an F-16 flying overhead here in the state, what a lot of people don't realize is that that piece of equipment is supported by a rather large pool of federal techs.
Colonel Moss says the Guard now has to focus on its primary missions only.
Unless the training is for a unit that's getting ready to go to war, then it's very likely that that training will be either cut or reduced to a substantial degree throughout the rest of the fiscal year.
Guardsmen headed to war will get first priority. The top state mission is next.
But it's our priority to make sure that we are ready and able to respond to any state disaster.
The Oklahoma National Guard is still facing $16 million in funding cuts under sequestration. Rachel Jackson is a graduate student at the University of Oklahoma, working toward her Ph.D. in the English department. Her husband Jim has worked as a jet engine mechanic at Tinker Air Force Base for 21 years. Jim's income is all they have to work with for now, so it's hard not to take sequestration personally.
They're told every day that they're here to support the warfighter, and now in the face of sequestration, that no longer matters. And the impact of sequestration in terms of the military is not being discussed.
For Rachel and Jim, the furlough days will mean major changes.
What we're going to lose amounts to half of our rent every month. And so it's very scary to have to make those kind of critical decisions for something that's really, in the end, not our fault.
Arnella Cargas at the Chamber, Senator Frank Simpson, Colonel Max Moss, and the union members who want Congress to eliminate sequestration cuts agree the impact of spending cuts will not end in September. They expect recovery from the cuts to take months, maybe longer.
When you have people making less money, less taxes are coming into our budget, that's one of those things that certainly will have a residual effect for at least a year, if not more.
I think sequestration is just the beginning of what we're going to see in many, hopefully realistic cuts coming from the federal government over the next several years.
You can imagine any business or corporation that all of a sudden is going to lose 60% of its workforce for 20% of a 7-month period. That can have dramatic impacts.
We are all going to suffer in this community if Congress doesn't wake up and do its job and repeal sequestration.
Carl Doms, Vice President of the American Federation of Government Employees, Local 916, which represents many of those Tinker Air Force Base employees who are facing furloughs still, says 2 weeks of delay doesn't change much. And in the end, the furloughs may still impact all of them.